Hey. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be ranking every vaulted item in Fortnite. We just did a video ranking every single weapon, and I thought, you know, you guys seem to like that. Give the people what they want, and today we're going to be looking at items. Traps, limited time items, and basically just everything else that is considered an inventory item. So, no Thanos garment. Now, before we do get into it, if you guys are new to the channel and could help me reach 2.5 million subscribers, that would be most appreciated. Now, let's do this. Okay, we're gonna start things off with the worst item that is in the vault. This is basically the worst, I would say, yeah, this is the worst thing that has ever been introduced into Fortnite. The most useless item and weapon for that matter, and even outside of the vault. This is the smoke grenade. While it seems the smoke grenade was developed with actually good intentions, it really didn't work out the way Epic had hoped. Really, I think the only reason people used the smoke grenade was to troll. The point of the smoke grenade was to kind of give yourself cover if you're running from place to place, maybe just give yourself a chance to escape from an enemy, things like that. But the problem with the smoke grenade is it just wasn't effective enough, useful enough to take an inventory slot. Maybe if it had been a trap, it would have worked a little bit better. But really the only time I ever saw smoke grenades getting used was just for trolling. Which is actually really interesting because it was one of the first new things that Epic put in the game, and it is one of those things that really fell flat on its face. Smoke grenades were very ineffective and really just not so beneficial. Okay, so moving on to number 12, I would say that this is almost a tie. It's kind of up for debate as being the worst, but it's certainly at least the second worst. And this is the chiller. So this is one to me that seemed less like intuitive that it would be effective and actually turned out to be better than I thought it would be, but it's still kind of dumb. I really don't understand the point of a chiller. It makes it so your enemy can't walk as well, but avoiding a chiller, you know, it's easy to avoid a trap, let alone a chiller. And the consequences of getting hit with one for the most case are pretty irrelevant. Now, let's consider a situation where you have to run from the storm and you happen to have a chiller on you and you're a little bit of a downhill slope. It's actually pretty effective at helping mobility. As far as it as an offensive weapon, I never really found it all that helpful. In very few cases, like I said, it was good for mobility, but really just another useless item. And now, in my opinion, these are the only two that really missed the mark. I think everything else had a place in the game, but these two were just not it. I didn't even need to ask Chief on that one. Anyways, let's move things along here. At number 11, this is the Porta Fort. Okay, so when we talk Porta Fort, logistically, we're talking a 3-story high metal structure. It's hilarious to think that at the time, people were freaking out about this, saying it's overpowered. Epic Games is ruining building, and then now we see what the Porta Fort is, and it's certainly not the case. The Porta Fort could be used kind of effectively in the right situation if you knew what you were doing with it. But my counter argument to that is anyone that could use it kind of effectively could probably, you know, be just effective with a host of other items. Honestly, early game, first chest you find, you get a Porta Fort and you've got enemies coming in at you. It is actually nice, okay? Get yourself some cover. But late game, I mean, like, it's just unrealistic that this is ever gonna work. So I would classify this one as helpful, but still not quite there. One might even say that this is also not it. Okay, so moving on to our number 10 spot, this is going to be the up jump pad. So back before we got bouncers and shockwaves and hop rocks and even impulse grenades, there were 2 traps that were basically 2 separate versions of bouncers. You had the directional jump pad, which sent you laterally, and the up jump pad, which sent you up. And in my opinion, the up jump pad was much worse than the directional. So the thing with both of these is neither of them gave you fall damage if you launched off of them, same as bouncers. So because they're equal in that sense, you have to just look at what they did. And in my opinion, especially at the time, there was just not a lot of use for an upward launching pad. Most people only used it just to save themselves from fall damage, but the directional pad would do the same thing and also give you distance. I mean, yes, you could certainly use it the same way that people use bouncers to gain height, but again, the directional pad was just much more effective in many more situations. Which takes us to actually our number 9 spot, and this is not the directional jump pad, but this is impulse grenades. So in my opinion, I actually think that impulse grenades are worse than the directional jump pad. Impulse grenades can send you up, they can send you laterally, but the big problem with these is that they actually do fall damage. You take fall damage if you launch yourself too high, and because of that, they're not always so helpful. I will admit the one thing that makes these so good is the fact that you could launch enemies off into the storm, but I really just don't think that impulse grenades were the best item to carry around. I mean, you had to give up an entire item slot, and I really just don't think that they were valuable enough to do that. Anyways, this is going to take us to number 8, and this is the directional jump pad. So directional jump pad kind of combines the best of both worlds of the last two. You've got no fall damage from, you can launch yourself off a mountain, you're fine, and the big ands is you actually get distance. Not only was it much more effective back in the day, it didn't take up an inventory slot, and I feel like it would still be pretty decent today. Kind of like a bouncer, but not quite. Anyways, moving on to our number 7 spot. This is going to be the Porta Fortress. So the Porta Fortress is one of the items that actually just got removed in the last patch. We saw the Grappler and the quad launcher also out, and I think this is one that made a lot of sense. I would say that in some ways, the Porta Fortress was much better than the Porta Fort. But actually, I don't think it was better in all ways. Porta Fortresses are so big that they can be a little bit chaotic, and almost to the point where it's a little chaotic for you. You can have people running around the bottom of them and you're not really sure what's going on. They're large, right? And it's hard to kind of defend it if, you know, even at the start of the game, you're using it effectively. There's a lot going on. But with all that being said, I mean, it's pretty obvious that for what you're using a Porta Fort / Fortress for, the Fortress is just more effective. The point of it is just to build and get high ground, get a little bit of defense going, and obviously it's just bigger, better, and even has bouncers off the side. Certainly not my favorite item, but not bad. Now, moving on to our number 6 spot, this is the Shockwave Grenade. Okay, Shockwave Grenade, I know we all miss impulses, but come on. These are so much better. First and foremost, better at transportation. You're not going to take fall damage. You can go a much further distance. That alone is, in my opinion, just makes it better. Actually, that really is my only argument. With the introduction of planes and quad crashers, they are both pretty obsolete. But, like, I mean, I guess the only argument you could say that impulses are better is the fact that you can bounce an enemy off a mountain and kill them. But, I mean, come on. How many of you have actually done that? And more so, how often have you used that as a viable strategy? Unless you're a streamer trying to get crazy clips, these items were more just for mobility or even just pushing up on an enemy, not as an actual weapon to knock a player out. All right, so anyways, moving on to number 5. This is actually going to be a tie between the ceiling trap and the wall dynamo. I didn't really want to include these in the last video looking at the weapons that are vaulted. It felt like a hard comparison, so I decided I'd move it to this video, and it actually does feel quite easier to rank. Because ultimately, all these are just traps. So the ceiling trap and the wall dynamo was just replaced by the spike trap that we know. It could go on the side, literally a trap. For those of you that don't know, it's literally just the spike trap, but different skin. And they also made noise. So the other thing is that these did 125 damage. So really all we're doing for this video is just say, where would a trap of any sort rank on this list? And I feel like number 5. I mean, I would certainly rather a trap over a Shockwave Grenade, a Porta Fortress, impulse grenades, a Porta Fort, a chiller smoke grenade. Like, yeah, absolutely. And as far as the next 4 spots go, I feel the same way. Traps of any sort are pretty good, and that's where these fit. Really, the only takeaway from these guys is it took a little bit of a charge up, and they also made quite a bit of noise continually. Let's move on. All right, the number 4 spot on our list is going to be the Bouncer. Now, the Bouncer is just superior and better than every other propulsion item on this list. The bouncer is an up and directional pad combined into one. It can send you multiple ways. It can be laid on any surface. That alone makes it obviously better than those two. Better than the impulse grenade because you don't take damage. And it's better than the shockwave grenade because it doesn't take up an inventory slot. I mean, again, seriously, who is filling up their inventory with an impulse or a shockwave? Bouncers were just the perfect addition, and I really do miss this one. You could use bouncers to get 3 floors up. You could use it to bounce off a mountain, run from the storm, send an enemy away sometimes. There were just so many different ways that you could use these things. That's why I like bouncers. They were super versatile, and in my opinion, it was a nice area of the skill gap. People that could use bouncers really had a skill over other players, and this is, in my opinion, is probably the item that I'm most sad got removed. It felt balanced but fair. Sounds like when a teacher tries to say, I'm strict but I'm fair. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, moving on to our number 3 spot. This is something that I feel like is less fair and balanced. This is the jetpack. So as I mentioned, I said we would include limited time items on this list, and the jetpack is one that I want to look at. I say limited time items, I'm not talking about things like the Infinity Gauntlet. That was an LTM itself. I'm talking about things that were an actual item that you could pick up. So also, we won't be looking at things like the Cake Slice, Spiky Stadium, the Jewel, Infinity Blade. Like, no, we're talking actual items. And one of these is the jetpack. So anyways, not technically in the vault, but basically vaulted. The jetpack, to me, seemed a little bit overpowered. No fall damage. That's the big thing for me, is basically no repercussions whatsoever of building high, of just really, playing stupid. Or at least building stupid and recklessly. More than that, I mean, if you messed up a build and you needed to get high ground, it wasn't too hard to just up and take it again. And really, the thing about the jetpack is, in some cases, it felt super unfair, but sometimes, it was an easy counter. Ultimately, though, the reason I'm ranking this so high is, when it was good, it was good, and it felt unfair to be used against you, and felt bad when it didn't work for you. Now, moving on to our number 2 spot, this is the Grappler. Okay, so the Grappler is basically the same thing as the jetpack, but better. I really like the Grappler, but I'm not sad in any way that it's gone. The Grappler did everything that the jetpack could do, except for save your life from fall damage. I mean, it might, but not in all cases. Ultimately, the Grappler was good for build fights. It was good for running from the storm if you needed. This is something I know a lot of players are sad that it left, and honestly, I don't think I'm one of them. I mean, if you want to get high ground, build it. I get that Fortnite needs other ways to be skillful, and I'm cool with that, but I never felt like the Grappler was it. Really good, don't get me wrong, but it just felt very cheap when you outbuilt someone and then they just kind of, gotcha, I have a Grappler. That being said though, I mean, I had a lot of fun with this thing. I am going to miss it. I just don't think it was the most fair item. Anyways though, moving on to our number 1 spot. This is very weird, because our number 1 item is not something that does anything other than give you other things. Coming in at number 1, we have presents. I miss presents. I'm gonna say it. I think we all miss presents. Okay, first and foremost, it basically is a minor supply drop. So, guaranteed gold weapon. Very often, you're getting maybe some other resources. Often, you're gonna get some more resources, but more importantly, you're probably also going to get health. Gold weapon, health. I think that's better than anything on this list. And actually, last but not least, the thing that makes the present even cooler is it had something like 450 health. There have been cases where I'm in a fight, I've actually thrown down the present as cover, and 450 out instantly is really good. Ultimately, I just don't think that anyone can argue that a gold weapon and heals is better than anything on this list. I certainly wouldn't do that. Maybe if it was like a gold FAMAS, but other than that, no way. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is our list. But wait a second. You think you're clicking off this video? No. I actually have something that you need to do. You must do. Ladies and gentlemen, it was this close. It was this close. I messed up. We all messed up. PewDiePie was 100,000 subscribers apart from T-Series. And we can't let that happen again. So listen, there's one thing you do. Well, besides subscribe to me, is you need to subscribe to PewDiePie. Keep the sub gap big, keep it strong. Go subscribe to PewDiePie and help PewDiePie get to 100 million. That's it. Go do it. Obviously, I gotta come back to turn off the camera.